The music, the costumes, the hair. There's only one ABBA. And after decades of going their own...
For years, fans of ABBA had dreamed of a reunion. Their songs like Dancing Queen and Mamma Mia had defined a generation, yet the band had disappeared at the peak of their fame, leaving the world with unanswered questions. After 40 years, the band finally came together again with new music, and it felt like history had been rewritten. Crowds cheered, old fans cried tears of joy, and younger generations discovered the magic that made ABBA one of the most loved pop groups in history. But behind this glittering reunion, there was a darker truth, one that had been hidden for decades. Benny Andersson, one of the founding members, had finally spoken about what really happened. In an emotional reflection, he opened up about the struggles that led to heartbreak, personal loss, and the end of one of the world's greatest music groups. For years, fans had only speculated. They wondered if fame, fortune, or personal differences were to blame. Now, for the first time, Benny admitted that love, betrayal, and emotional struggles played the biggest role in ABBA's downfall. His confession revealed not only the truth about the group's split, but also the painful reality of what it cost him and his bandmates. In the 1970s, ABBA wasn't just a pop group, they were the symbol of love, music, and global success. Benny Andersson and Anni-Frid Frida Lyngstad were seen as the perfect couple, much like their bandmates Bjorn Ulvaeus and Agnetha Faltskog. Their romance was celebrated by millions of fans, who believed that their love was as unshakable as their music. But, as Benny later admitted, appearances can be deceiving. Behind the stage lights, the sequins, and the perfectly choreographed performances, their relationship was crumbling. They had first met in 1969, long before ABBA even existed. Benny was already a rising star in Sweden, known for his work with the Hep Stars, often called the Swedish Beatles. Frida, on the other hand, was making her way into the folk and jazz music scene. The moment they met, Benny was drawn to her fiery red hair, strong personality, and soulful voice. Their connection was instant, and soon, both their personal and musical lives began to intertwine. As ABBA took shape in the early 1970s, so did their relationship. While Bjorn and Agnetha often drew the public spotlight, it was Benny and Frida who quietly worked behind the scenes to shape the band's sound. His perfection in creating melodies and her powerful, emotional singing became the core of ABBA's music. To the world, they looked unstoppable. But as Benny revealed years later, fame and creative differences were slowly building cracks in their foundation. By the mid-1970s, ABBA had become an unstoppable global force. Their world tours drew massive crowds, their records sold millions, and their songs topped charts worldwide. But behind the scenes, pressure was building. Benny, known for being a perfectionist, often spent long nights in the studio, polishing every note until it was flawless. Frida, however, was more spontaneous and emotional in her music. At first, their differences balanced each other, creating a unique sound that made ABBA legendary. But over time, those differences began to clash. Fame only made things worse. While Benny preferred to stay private when not on stage, Frida enjoyed the social side of celebrity life. The contrast between them grew sharper, and close friends began noticing the tension during tours and recording sessions. Even their creative spark, the thing that had drawn them together, began to fade. By 1979, the cracks in their relationship were too big to hide. Benny buried himself in work, and Frida started feeling increasingly distant. Then came the rumors. Whispers about Benny's growing closeness to Mona Norklit, a television worker he had met during an ABBA project, began spreading. These whispers turned out to be true. In 1981, Benny confessed to Frida that he had developed feelings for Mona. This admission marked the breaking point. After 9 years together, their love story had reached its painful end. Though they tried to remain professional for ABBA, the emotional wounds could not be hidden. Their breakup was not just personal, it became a turning point that affected the future of the band. In May 1981, Benny Andersson sat down for an interview with Sweden's Expressen newspaper. What unfolded that day was one of the most important revelations in ABBA's history. Nervously fidgeting with a pack of cigarettes, his usual confidence was gone. His hands shook, and his voice carried the weight of heartbreak. For weeks, fans and tabloids had speculated, but Benny finally broke his silence. He admitted to having feelings for Mona and confessed that his relationship with Frida had reached its end. The man who had once crafted ABBA's happiest and most unforgettable hits now struggled to find the right words to explain his own pain. His attempt to speak casually about his new woman only revealed the deep tension and sadness behind his forced smile. Across Sweden and beyond, fans were stunned. The couple they had idolized was no longer together. The fairy tale love story had crumbled. Frida also gave her side in an interview, showing the quiet strength that had always defined her. She admitted the pain but also revealed she was seeing someone new, a businessman she kept out of the public eye. While Benny seemed weighed down by guilt and exhaustion, Frida displayed resilience and dignity. But no matter how bravely they carried themselves, the truth was clear. ABBA had lost the personal harmony that once fueled their music. Even though they continued recording for a short while, the spark was gone. Songs like The Winner Takes It All and When All Is Said and Done carried a deeper pain, reflecting the reality behind the music. To understand the strength Frida showed during this time, we must go back to her childhood, a story far different from glittering stages and worldwide fame. Born in Norway in 1945, Frida was the daughter of a Norwegian mother and a German soldier. At the time, such children were stigmatized as war babies, and both mother and daughter faced harsh treatment in a country still scarred by the war. To protect her daughter from this hostility, Frida's mother moved to Sweden, where she worked hard to build a new life. Tragically, Frida grew up believing her father had died in the war, a story told to protect her from the painful truth. Music soon became her escape. By the time she was a teenager, she was performing on stage, her deep and emotional voice capturing the attention of audiences and music producers. She formed her own band, began recording singles, and by the late 1960s, she was already a rising star in Sweden. In the 1970s, when ABBA came together, Frida's career soared to new heights. But her personal life was never free of challenges. In 1977, she discovered that her father was alive in Germany, leading to an awkward and emotional reunion that left many questions unanswered. Frida carried the scars of her past quietly, but it was clear that her life had been shaped by struggle long before fame arrived. After ABBA's split and her breakup with Benny, Frida's life took another dramatic turn. In 1992, she married Prince Heinrich Rutzo-Roos von Plauen, a member of European royalty. Overnight, the pop star became a princess, living in a castle in Switzerland overlooking Lake Geneva. For many, it looked like the fairy tale ending she deserved. The Swedish press celebrated her as both a beloved pop star and now a royal figure. But reality was different. Life in the palace came with strict rules, traditions, and formalities that felt worlds away from the freedom of the music stage. Frida admitted in interviews that adapting to aristocratic life was challenging. She had to trade recording studios and concerts for royal events, charity galas, and diplomatic functions. While she carried out her duties with grace, the restrictions left her questioning whether this was the happiness she had been searching for. And then, tragedy struck again. In 1998, Frida suffered a devastating loss when her daughter, Annelise Latte, died in a car accident in New York. She was only 30 years old. For Frida, this was more than just the loss of a child, it was the loss of her closest confidant, someone who had shared every part of her journey. The pain was unimaginable. After the accident, Frida withdrew from the public eye, spending most of her time in solitude at her Swiss home. Fame, titles, and public duties suddenly seemed unimportant compared to the deep grief she carried. This tragedy left her forever changed, and though she continued to live quietly as a princess, she was no longer the vibrant star the world once knew. Looking back, Benny Andersson's confession about his breakup with Frida was more than just a personal story, it symbolized the end of an era. ABBA's music was always full of joy, love, and energy, but behind it were real people facing heartbreak, betrayal, and loss. The songs that millions loved often carried hidden meanings, reflecting the struggles their creators were living through. Today, ABBA's legacy is stronger than ever. Their music continues to inspire, and their reunion brought closure to a story that had long felt unfinished. But fans now understand the painful truth: behind every hit song was a life full of challenges, sacrifices, and emotional battles. Benny's honesty and Frida's resilience remind us that even legends are human. Their story is not just about pop success, it's about love, loss, and the price of fame. Before Benny Andersson became one of the most recognized names in pop music history, his life was shaped by humble beginnings and an early love for melodies. Born in 1946 in Stockholm, Sweden, Benny grew up in a modest household where music was more of a family pastime than a career dream. His father and grandfather were both musicians, often playing the accordion at gatherings, which left a deep mark on young Benny. By the time he was 6 years old, he had already started experimenting with instruments and learning how to play tunes by ear. Unlike many children who needed structured lessons, Benny had a natural ability to hear a song and recreate it without much guidance. This gift would later set him apart as one of the greatest musical arrangers of his generation. At 15, Benny received his first accordion and later a piano, which became his true instrument of choice. He would spend hours crafting melodies, testing harmonies, and imagining how music could tell stories. These formative years gave him both technical skill and a unique sense of musical identity. Long before ABBA was formed, Benny was already building the foundation of the creative genius that would help shape their timeless sound. His early exposure to folk and Swedish traditional music also added layers of depth to his later compositions, showing that his roots always played a role in his artistry. Real-life story of ABBA singer Anif Frid Lindgad is also one of searching for her father, only to find that the singer's birth was actually part of a grand Nazi scheme, but the connection she had hoped for just wasn't there. The girl, once rejected by her own country for her roots, went on to become a global icon, her voice reaching millions of fans worldwide. From being a war child to a pop sensation, Frida had overcome so much of her past, but fame had a way of throwing curveballs when she swapped her pop star status for a real tiara. The question remained: would she finally find the happiness she'd been searching for all those years? The crown's heavyweight. After ABBA disbanded and Frida's marriage to Benny came to an end, it seemed like Frida Lindgad was about to live out her real-life fairy tale. In 1992 she married Prince Heinrich Roy von Plauen, and just like that she became a princess. The Swedish press went wild. Their beloved ABBA star, who had captured the world's heart as a pop icon, was now royalty living in a grand Swiss castle. Benny's professional career began in the 1960s when he joined a Swedish pop-rock band called the Hepstars, often referred to as the Swedish Beatles. The group became hugely popular in Sweden, performing covers of international hits as well as original songs. Benny played keyboards, and his talent for composing soon became apparent when he wrote hits for the band, including songs like Sunny Girl and Wedding. It was through this band that Benny first gained fame in Sweden, learning how the music business worked and understanding what it took to entertain large crowds. However, what seemed like a local success story was actually preparing him for something much bigger. During his time with the Hepstars, Benny met Bjorn Ulvaeus, who was part of another band, the Hootenanny Singers. Their meeting was no coincidence in history, it was destiny. The two quickly bonded over their love of songwriting and began collaborating on music. Their partnership was unique because Benny was a master of melody and arrangement, while Bjorn excelled in lyrics and structure. Together, they created a balance that made their compositions powerful yet easy to connect with. This partnership would eventually lead to the formation of ABBA, a band that would not only dominate the charts but also leave a permanent mark on music history. The lessons Benny learned during his time with the Hepstars, about popularity, stage presence, and songwriting, were all stepping stones toward the global phenomenon that was about to unfold. When ABBA finally came together in the early 1970s, Benny Andersson's role became one of the most crucial in shaping the band's identity. While all four members contributed their talents, Agnetha and Annie Frid with their iconic voices, and Bjorn with his lyricism, Benny was the backbone of ABBA's sound. His ability to weave together catchy melodies with sophisticated harmonies gave ABBA's songs a timeless quality. For instance, tracks like Dancing Queen, The Winner Takes It All, and Chiquitita all showcase his deep understanding of how to combine instruments, vocal arrangements, and rhythm to create something unforgettable. Benny's piano and synthesizer work added a signature touch that made ABBA's songs stand out from the crowd of pop music at the time. More than that, he had the rare ability to blend joy and sadness within the same song, creating music that could make you dance while also tugging at your heartstrings. Many critics have pointed out that ABBA's success was not just about catchy pop tunes, it was about emotional depth hidden in their melodies, something Benny carefully crafted. Beyond writing, he also took on the role of arranger, ensuring that every song had the right balance of vocals, instruments, and emotion. Without his meticulous attention to detail, ABBA might not have achieved the same level of perfection in their music. Benny was not only the genius behind the keyboard but also the architect of ABBA's lasting global sound, ensuring that even decades later, their songs still feel fresh and relevant.